ourselves in the mood. Thank you. So welcome to the Roadmap to Happiness. This usually draws a lot of people because people are interested in how can I be happy? I want happiness in my life. That sounds good. Fantastic. And thank you to Thupten Kunga Center. Thank you to Nicole. Thank you to Patty, Cecilia, all these people that have made this, Ralph, everybody that's been helping to make this possible. Thank you. And people that are behind the scenes like that. So thank you so much. So one of the things for happiness we want to do first is we in Buddhism have a motivation, and at the end of any activity, we have a dedication. And I've been talking about this the last few days, and we motivate to be of the most benefit to all living beings. Many of you, I'm sure, because you're in this room, have a good heart. You want to help people. You probably help a lot of people in various ways. And we often come to an area where I don't know what to say to somebody. I don't know what to do for someone. I wish I knew what to tell them. I hear this all the time. I see my own limitations. So if you're a Buddha, if you're a fully awakened being, is what Buddha means in Sanskrit, right? Then you're unlimited in helping people. You know every moment, right? And you're free of all fear. You have fully manifest every good quality. So basically, you've purified Sangye. Rinpoche teaches about this a lot in Tibetan, Buddha, Sangye. It's actually his brother's name, Sangye. Okay. Being completely purified of all negativities and having every positive attribute. That's a Buddha, right? Who wouldn't want that? Who doesn't want that? Does it take effort to get there? Yes, it does. But we make effort. We're fine with effort. We just don't put effort in the right directions, right? So with this motivation in mind of, if you'd like to roll that into your motivation, like I'd like to be unlimited in helping people. How do you get there? Let's figure out a way to reach that place. If you find another avenue other than Buddhism, that's fine. Doesn't have to be Buddhist. As long as it gets you to a place completely unlimited, fully empowered, perfect every moment, but very focused on, in our tradition, Mahayana Buddhism, very focused on benefiting all living beings. It's not just enough to get myself out of the mess, right? I'm really focused on that's the goal, is to benefit all living beings perfectly. So take a moment, you can just close your eyes for a minute. Just think about that type of motivation. And relate it to the reason you're here right now. The reason you showed up today. Are they in alignment, your purpose for being here today, with this grander motivation? Or feel free to include the bigger picture in your motivation, because if you came here today because you're interested in happiness, that's fantastic. Now, it may initially be directed at your own happiness or the happiness of your family, close friends. Also okay. But what if you could expand a little bit beyond that? Like, how happy are we going to bed in our happiness when we know there's others suffering? What if we could find a way to help them on a path, to show them a path? They have to do the work, but where they could be ultimately happy as well. Wouldn't you sleep better at night? But in any event, take a moment right now, directing your mind in the most positive way. Please set your motivation for our time together and all the activities of the rest of your day. And really for the purpose of benefiting all living beings, let's talk about happiness, joy. So please relax, Slowly open your eyes. I love this class, this topic. So joy, we know it's associated with a lot of things. And this roadmap for happiness, I'm basing this on a wonderful book that came out a few years ago, the Book of Joy. I highly recommend reading it, frankly. If you haven't read it yet, the Book of Joy is basically interviews with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And a few years ago in Dharamsala, India, before the pandemic, a writer went and interviewed them, and they were old friends, and it's just delightful. And there's actually some video about it as well. There's interviews with them, and sometimes when I have a Zoom class, and see, this is something that's changed now. When I have a Zoom class, I'll play some of the short videos of the two of them talking or being interviewed. Not the time in Dharamsala, but they're interviewed on other guest shows and things like that. And we could have certainly set that up here and you could watch the video, but then I think lose those folks, but then they would see it here. So it's a little complicated. So I thought so there's interesting ways we've adapted, and now we're back in person, and it's like, oh, how am I going to do that? So it's a really delightful book. And and you can search on YouTube, and one of the delightful parts of it is at the very end, there's a scene and there's a video. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, but different than His Holiness, who's celibate, a monk, had a family, and he really liked to dance. And that's not normally something monastics do, but he's teaching His Holiness how to dance. And it's just the most delightful thing for me to see. That look on His Holiness's face is like, it's just such a sweet. So we've got, what do we think about happiness and joy? Are we clear about what it really is? We've got pleasure, amusement. There's all different kinds of happiness and joy. Contentment, which is like a calmer type of deeper satisfaction, which I find sometimes people are happy, or there's a fleeting happiness, but are they really content? And that's a deeper level where you're pretty balanced, okay, with how things are going. And that mind shows it as well. So we've got excitement. Sometimes something's new and exciting. There's joy associated with relief, right? There's joy with wonder and ecstasy, and a kind of radiant pride you have sometimes with joy about your kids, something like that, or close friends or partner, something like that. And then we also have kind of an unhealthy thing, which I've always kind of, as a kid, wondered about when people drive by a car accident, right? The rubbernecking, we say. So everybody slows down. The other day it just happened to me again. My lane was really, right, the lane I'm in was going really slow, and I see these people moving, and I come this way, and a car's turned over on the side of the road, and there's people around, and I don't think anyone was hurt, but why everybody, you look, and it's an unhealthy joy. It's not that you're happy to see it, but why does everybody have to look? Like, what's the fascination with somebody else's tragedy? I remember years ago in my street where I grew up, there was a fire, and occasionally a house would have a fire, and then everybody runs down the street, to have to watch and there's this kind of fascination of like, and sometimes they even have like smiles on their, like, it's this weird, so that's kind of an unhealthy one. I'd say we're not going there, but we get the idea. So the 8, they divided, and what they did is they kind of sectioned out. These are 2 people, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who have had tremendous suffering in their lives on a global scale, horrendous suffering. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, obviously through apartheid, when he had to watch the brutality in South Africa, in the Republic of South Africa, of all the Black people being brutalized for ages like that, tortured, killed over and over until that regime ended, him being an advocate for the regime ending, putting his life in danger, his family in danger. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, on the other end of the invasion of the communist Chinese in the 50s to Tibet, taking over Tibet, calling it China now, and the slaughter of 1.3 million Tibetans that His Holiness had to stand by, couldn't do anything about, and fled the country in 1959 to India. It took him in and allowed him to set up a government in exile where he lives in Northwest India in Dharamsala, like that. So having this, they're still brutalizing Tibetans to this day in China. They're not free in Tibet, and it's really, really sad. So how do they somehow rise above to have joy? That they're both people. I've been around His Holiness. I haven't been around Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who unfortunately passed away. But His Holiness, you don't feel the depression or the hatred or confusion. He's just larger than life and always quite joyful, and very, very, and this is one of the keys, is very, very directed to help all living beings, always directed. Everybody he sees is like a best friend. You just get this warm feeling immediately. And his mind, in a sense, not that I know his mind, but you get this sense of this vast, spacious mountain, like this warm, loving, and it really bowls people over. I've seen a number of my friends who had meetings with him in Dharamsala. I've had an individual meeting with him once, have met him other times, and you're the rest of the day, you're a little not quite on the ground. There's something, that quality of mind, that quality of heart touches you very deeply. So, and it transports you. So what if we could develop that in ourselves, and every ripple that goes out from you is some kind of pure beacon of joy, right? Touching everybody in a very benevolent, beneficial way. The effect, the influence you could have on the planet, right? If we were all really working on this. So it's really hard to get enlightened. I get it. It's hard to meditate, to just start on the path. What better thing do you have to do than work on your mind? And I know it's really hard now, and it's getting harder. So our tradition and other religions say this is a degenerate time. And what part of that means is it gets harder and harder to practice, which I've definitely noticed over my not so long lifespan and my involvement with centers. Is the excuses I hear from people now why they can't attend the course or do things, the excuses are more and more sophisticated. So we kind of lie to ourselves. Why I really don't want to do this really beneficial thing that's going to make me happier. It's not a bad lying. I mean, it's just, these are the stories we tell ourselves of, this is too hard, so I'd rather settle and just be comfortable and stream my videos tonight and binge watch this or do these other things. We make a lot of effort. We don't have problem with effort. It's just, what's your effort directed at, like that. And you can be so much happier, but it's hard. It's really hard when the world's spinning around in a different way with different values and things. So I've had my own, look at that, of what I could step up in my practice, and you make realistic adjustments. You don't tomorrow be like, I think I'll meditate 3 hours a day. If you've never been meditating, you start with 10 minutes. You figure out a place in your house, you sit for 10 minutes. I say this over and over because a lot of people don't know how to get started. How do they approach it? What do they do? It's simple. You don't need any fancy room for an altar or any. If you need, sit on your sofa, but sit in the right way. Sit with your back straight. Just, are you ever still during the day? Do you ever have 10 minutes of just to have a look at your mind? Why did I just get angry at this person, right? Why am I so attached to this thing? Why do I think I need that thing? Am I going to be happy if I get the house redone? Like, you get to see what's really going on and what really innately is going to make you happy. What is already in there that you can water and fertilize and help grow, of that Buddha nature, that innate happiness is already there. But it's so obscured with veils of, I need to do this. I want this. I have to have this. Then you get an influence from someone else, So it's interesting when you sit down and quiet the mind, which is hard, but just that regular, even if you start 10 minutes for a month, in the morning, 10 minutes at night, you'll notice a difference. You'll have a benefit from it. So that's not too hard to insert, really, when you think about it. So it's something you can think about. So here's things from this book and other notes I've made about joy. And we're going to look at the 8 pillars of joy that they talk about in this book. But different, scientists, neuroscientists, were all interviewed and things like this. And these are things to think about as far as how can I create more joy in my mind. One of them says there's 4 independent brain circuits, a researcher, neuroscientist, okay, that influence our lasting well-being. 4 independent brain circuits. Okay, so how's this going for you? Our ability to maintain positive states, right? Some people are great. No matter what happens, there's a silver lining. Whatever happens, there's a silver lining. Other people hang out in the negative a lot, right? We all have our own tendencies. People like this. But so think about your own thing. Can you adjust a little bit? Our ability to maintain positive states. So I was laughing yesterday with my brother. Some of it was happening when I was here. My brother, his first car was a 49 Chevy that he helped restore, right? And then this was, I don't know, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, maybe something like that. But over the years, he used it for many years. And it was when it was prime, it was amazing, beautiful car, used it for many years. He's very attached to things. And then finally this didn't work. He got busy, got married, had kids, life happens, right? Then he bought a house, his wife, and then the car wasn't working at one point and it ended up back in the garage. Then they needed the garage out in the driveway. They need to get the driveway done under a tarp for about 25 years, rusted, not working, a rodent home, basically. He said when he opened the trunk, a squirrel jumped out. So, so he didn't want to get rid of it. He had a dream, he's going to restore it. I contacted a couple companies. What would it cost to restore it? So yesterday it was towed away. He offered it to Habitat for Humanity, donated it, whatever. They're going to auction it or who knows what else they'll do to it. I don't want to even go there with him, but so he was very attached and it was very, and he was WhatsApping our family. It's going with a video. There it goes. And here it is. And here's my last ride. I mean, it was just adorable. And then suddenly it was gone. And I called him when I got home and said, how are you doing? Just to support him when and then my brother's always usually quite positive. And he said, well, now you can see the garden. So there's somebody right away, you could hang out and wallow in the thing. And he had his time of, and then immediately, you can see the garden now. Now I can get the driveway done. Now I can get the garage door fixed because it was blocking this whole area and stuff. So fantastic. So that's one, ability to maintain positive states. Second circuit, helping us to be more joyful, lasting well-being. Lasting well-being, that's what you want, not fleeting happiness. We want lasting well-being, okay? Our ability to recover from negative states. Okay, so related to the first one, but what's your ability to recover from negative states? Do you hang out for months and hold a grudge for years and then she did this to me over and over? Or do you kind of let it go? I'm working with this community now, Land of Medicine Buddha in California. Beautiful, beautiful center. And we've got a very good team of people on the board. We put together a new board and there's somebody in the community that has old stories, the hurt of what happened before. It didn't go their way. It should have been like this. And they've been telling everybody these stories, which sometimes is like 2 hours I sit down with them. They need somebody to hear the stories. So I'm listening. I'm the chair of the board now. So I'm trying to help with the harmony but it's not just me, it's a team. But this person just hangs on. And finally, I've said to them, okay, when they start repeating the third time, then I kind of like, okay, so what would you like to have happen? Let's just, and can you, and over, several of us are like, okay, we know, can you let go of that now so we can move on? Would you be, is there a way we can help you do that? Because it just keeps it mired and these old stories keep coming up and we're like, we understand that was wrong. We don't want that to happen again. We're down, the train is moving out this way. So would you like to join us on? So how do you recover from negative states? That's something to think about. Can I adjust? You can work with your partner. Some of you came here together. Talk to each other. Communicate. Instead of criticizing and trashing each other kind of work where you can kind of say, oh, you're doing it again in a gentle way. Okay, thank you for catching that. Thank you for showing me. Okay, third circuit. Our ability to focus and avoid mind wandering. How about that? Different than the other two. This is about battling distraction, our ability to focus and avoid mind wandering. The mindfulness movement's huge in the States right now. I think it's great. People keep asking me, what do you think about the mindfulness stuff when it first came out? What do you, like it's anti-dharma. It's not anti-dharma. It's not dharma, because dharma is about dismantling delusion in your mind. Mindfulness doesn't do that. Mindfulness, I think, is great, though. We need mindfulness. You're even mindfulness, you are uncomfortable in a moment. We're so uncomfortable with being uncomfortable that we end up lashing out at somebody, doing something stupid, not facing what you need to face. What if you could just be with your discomfort for a moment? Because once you practice being with your discomfort, and life on the planet is uncomfortable, right? So might as well practice that. Once you practice with your discomfort, okay, you're more familiar with dealing with your discomfort, so you're more comfortable with your discomfort. That's helpful. Now, another part of mindfulness in our tradition, I like to think is, what is your mind full of? What's your mind full of? We like to make it full of virtuous mind states, positive thinking. That, you know, you might know somebody that they've got this kind of trait. I don't need to focus on that. I'll focus on their positive traits instead of the negative. That. But the basic mindfulness movement helps you to just watch what your mind is doing. You can do it in formal meditation. And when you come off the cushion, most people say, when you're doing this time and time again, most people say that they are more mindful in everyday life. It's such a benefit for you. Because I can guarantee, and I'm just looking at the age around here, as you get older, most of you know, well, once you cross 40, you can't remember anything anymore, okay? But the thing is, I see people again and again living with my dad, and he was into his 90s, living with him for several years. He'd come downstairs, this is really common, and then he'd go, I forget what I came downstairs for, right? People are looking for, where did I put my cup? Where's my phone? Where are my glasses? Where are the keys, right? Well, they're the last place you put them is where they are, right? But you wouldn't spend all this time and then you get frustrated and then you say something rude to your partner. You know, I told you, you know, well, we're late. You know, well, I told you that, I told you to get ready early, and then you start a fight. If your mind is there when you put the cup down, you go into another room, I know exactly where the cup is. Okay, so why not slow things down? Meditation helps you do that. That's not a bad thing. You'll get more done, I assure you. So I used to multitask. I don't multitask much anymore. One thing at a time. Because now I'm focused on what I'm doing. I get much more done. Segment your day, plan your day. Maybe you need time management help. I find it enormously helpful. So this is the half hour I'm returning these emails. Might be my personal emails, not the center emails. This is the half hour allotted. So if the phone rings, I'm going to see who it is in case it's a doctor, somebody I need to talk with. If it's not, this is not my phone time. I want to do this right now. Okay, unless it's somebody I really want to talk to, that I can call them back. Unless I had an appointment with them. This is what I'm doing right now. Now it's the phone time. So I'll call these people I need to call. I might not be able to reach them all, but do this, you leave messages, take care of that. One thing at a time I find is much easier. So again, ability to focus. How do you focus? Do you focus well when you're at work? Are you distracted? Or so look at what contributes as well, because now we have these devices and we have phones, right? And a lot of people in the pandemic, I talked to them. So, you know, the Netflix stock went way up because everybody was streaming videos. What else to do, right? So a number of people in my family say they binge watch shows. So there's a constant thing on the video they've got to watch. Several hours will go by. So think about what it does to your mind. Think about what programs you watch. What kind of things do you read? Do you do any reading? You know, some people less and less now. You know, so what kind of things are coming in? What do you look at on your phone? And when do you do it? How many hours go by? How much time does it take of what? Because you get sucked in. somebody would send me a link and say, you got to see this thing with His Holiness. And I go on the link and it's like a 2-minute thing. And then suddenly I see another thing pop up. And oh, what about that one? And suddenly 40 minutes goes by. And I'm like, what was I doing? And when you get into the dancing cat videos, then you're in trouble, right? Then you're in trouble. So just the skillfulness of because the mind, it's like it always needs something, but what if we just quiet it down, which takes effort because we're not used to doing it. You might not have a lot of people around you doing that. So you talk yourselves out of it. And people sit for the first 5 minutes and the mind's bouncing around like a boomerang and they go, I can't meditate, and they give it up. That's part of meditation. It's watching my mind bounce around, right? But the longer you're there on the cushion, like hang through that, just breathe in, you breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Try to get the mind to follow that, right? Count your breaths. So 1 inhalation, 1 exhalation is 1. See how far you can count. You're off the breath, following a sound or a thought, distraction. Back to the breath, I start counting again at 1. And watch the thoughts sometimes. The thoughts, bubbles of thoughts, I call them. But I don't need to attach to any of them. Let them, bubbles float off. I'm just observing. This is how you get to know your mind. And then you can start changing your mind as you get to know it. I don't really like that pattern. And I notice that I'm doing that pattern when I'm around these people, or when I'm really tired, or when this happens, but this pattern I really like. I'd like to enhance that, right? Fantastic. And this pattern I want to reduce. So let me figure out, maybe I need to come to the Buddhist center, find the antidotes to work on that. And slowly your mind starts to change in a positive way. Every one of you that's been around for a while, you can say, I looked back a year. Yes, my mind is so much better. And the year before that, even better. So much better than that, now that it's been 2 years or 5 years or 8 years. It's very significant. Here's the 4th circuit from this neuroscientist for lasting well-being. Again, 4th circuit, our ability to be generous. And that's one of the pillars of joy, generosity. Generosity. Okay, so that's an interesting one. Now, I'm not talking about giving money. It doesn't have to be giving money, giving time, lending an ear. Do we listen well to people? Some people, I found in the pandemic, and this happened when I was at Milarepa Center in Vermont, northern Vermont. As soon as late October came and the light starts changing and people know they're going into a long winter, our phone would start ringing. I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I need help, I'm an alcoholic, I want to drink, I'm a recovering alcoholic, I want to drink again. And so the pandemic, the beginning, I got so many calls and emails. And a lot of times, and I was like, I still do it. There's certain people that are living alone, very lonely and scared and old. And I would call them and it wasn't, I didn't have to fix anything. They just wanted to talk. They just needed to tell me about their fears and what was going on. And sometimes that's good enough to just listen to somebody, and there were some people where they'd call or we'd set up a meeting and then I'd say, okay, so they have this problem. And I said, so do you want advice? Like, do you want to fix it? Or do you just want me to listen? And sometimes they say, I just need you to listen. Okay. Just want to hear somebody to pour it out to. That's fine. So you could be generous like that. People are generous with the center. They offer their time for the center. People donate to the center. It's very kind like that. Just that generous attitude though. You have space in your mind for that. So I found that really interesting. And then they talk about in this book, the concept of Ubuntu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but a person is a person through other persons. And this is a South African term. A person is a person through other persons. So how are you with other people? Who are we bumping up against? There's some people naturally are more kind of hermits and things, but most of us, you're going around the world, there's more and more people on the planet as well. So we're going to be bumping up against more and more people. There seems to be this kind of surprise from my generation of all the traffic in different parts of the country right now. Like it used to just be like California was really bad. South Florida, you have your, Miami traffic, horrible. Okay, but it's seeping into everywhere now. So the little community I grew up in outside Philadelphia has traffic now. There's certain times of the day where I'll think, oh, I don't want to do that. That never was like that when I was a kid. There was traffic, but not in the areas where I'd be driving. And so there's twice as many people on the planet as when I was, yeah, there's going to be more traffic. There's going to be more traffic. So it's just a given of, so how do I even want to be in traffic? Because a person is a person through other persons. So even driving as a jerk upsets somebody else, can cause an accident with somebody else. In South Florida, there's a lot of older people driving. So like to drive when you're older, it's difficult, right? So just thinking about how we bump up against other people, how am I, what's my friends network like? Because if you have a lot of influences, negative influences around you, that can interfere with your long-lasting well-being. It doesn't mean you cut these people out of your life, especially if you're related to them, but can I reduce the time I might spend with them, or reduce it in certain ways when they're doing these certain activities that, I don't need to be around for those kind of things, but I'm happy to join for other things. You can be wise and skillful like that. And His Holiness will talk about mental immunity. I love those words he uses now, mental immunity. Just learning to avoid destructive emotions, okay, and to develop positive ones, okay? Thank you. Is just as healthy as developing your own immune system. So this is your mind developing healthy and avoiding destructive emotions, not getting so glommed on to some negative experience that I'm having. There are people that suffer from chronic depression. I get it. And some people that have extreme anxiety, but sometimes you have a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of depression. We don't need to make a bigger story about it. Your moods go up and down. It's just like that. I noticed at the centers when I was running another center in California, and because I was the boss and I would come down to the main building all day where the folks were, and they'd come in, and if the housekeeper wanted a new vacuum, she'd kind of check my mood. What kind of mood was I in, things. And so I noticed, and so, some days I was a bit off and I just was kind of down, it was a big responsibility, whatever. And I come in and then I'd see, the staff were really amazing. And she'd say, oh, somebody'd say, what, how are you doing? What's the matter? I said, oh, I'm just a little off today. And then they try to fix it. And sometimes I say, no, it's okay. Tomorrow will be different. Usually it was. Tomorrow I was fine. So just looking at the fluctuations, you build your mental immunity, but again, trying to avoid destructive emotions, and through developing good ones, the destructive emotions will decrease like that. So that you have a healthy immune system protects your body, mental immunity protects your mind. It's also nice, they quote in this book that I always liked, from Nelson Mandela. Some of you are familiar with this quote. I learned when he was in prison for 30 years or something due to the apartheid regime, and he was kind of a leader in the resistance. So that's why they imprisoned him, a political prisoner. And he said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. I felt fear more times than I can remember, but I hid it behind a mask of boldness. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, okay, but he who conquers that fear. And Nelson Mandela had a tremendous amount of anger, and that I think got him thrown in prison the first time, but he was a political prisoner. He did not necessarily doing so much wrong, but incredible anger. And then through the process of working with his mind, understanding that the anger is not going to get him any results, what did he need to do to it? So shifting the view. So again, noticing fear, noticing negative emotions when they come up. If you face them, it's easier to triumph over them than running and hiding, denying, or lashing out at somebody else like that. So let's look at these, the 8 pillars, okay? 8 are what are called qualities of the mind, okay? And 4 are qualities of the mind, the first 4, and the last 4 are qualities of the heart. Qualities of the mind: perspective, humility, humor, and acceptance. The 4 qualities from the heart: forgiveness, gratitude, compassion, and generosity. So I find it interesting here. They layer generosity as the 8th, the last one. In Tibetan Buddhism, we have something called the 6 perfections. 6 perfections. Perfect types of behavior that you do with a fully opened heart of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is Sanskrit term. Bodhi, enlightenment, citta, mind. The mind of enlightenment wants to get enlightened to benefit all living beings, right? And then you do it also with a mind that understands the nature of reality, emptiness. So then they're perfect. So Buddhas would perform these 6 activities. The first one is generosity. Okay, so we have generosity, ethical conduct, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. Generosity is the first because they say in Buddhism, it's from where all the realizations flow, where all your positive activities flow, where the ability to sit and practice Dharma flows from a generous heart and mind. So it's interesting. So here they have it as 8, also included though. Okay, let's look at perspective. Some of you are familiar, you understand as soon as I say them. Again, perspective, humility, humor, acceptance, how what we come out with from the mind, and how the heart forgives, gratitude, compassion, generosity. Perspective is a lot about reframing. I love the word reframing. And I'll even watch my mind come into a situation. And it's been hard work at Land of Medicine Buddha. I've been out there 6 months. And there'll be times when I'm thinking, I don't really want to do this. I don't really want to do this work or something. And then I'll think, wait a minute. I checked in with my teacher of what might be best for me to do right now. Like I still have a lot of energy. So the first year of the pandemic, fortunately, I was home in my parents' simple house. They had passed, but it was a great place to work. I'm happy to quarantine alone. It was like a little retreat for me. First year, good setting, good neighbors, affordable place like that. It was very hard sometimes for nuns. We don't have much support, Western nuns. And so for the first year, but I felt like I still had a big project in me that I could really help. And I've helped some residential centers. And so a year later, I checked back in that should I stay here in the house, could give me an affordable place. There's not many Buddhists around. So it'd be better for me to be at a center, in a conducive community. And so I had a whole list of things for my teacher of centers that had approached me. So I check with my teacher, this comes out best, not good, it came out best. Then I know, great. And from those best things he's advised me in the past, I have enough faith from experiences I've had with him in the past. When it's best, I've noticed at the end of that kind of project, which could be several years, right? More transformation for my mind, for the better. So I have faith in that. So I go, well, if it's best, that's great. And to help the center is amazing. And of all the centers where I travel, it has big obstacles, but the reason is it has some of the biggest potential I've seen at a center. 108 acres with shrines and statues and a meditation hall. And there's a school, there's a hospice, it's unbelievable, the place. Once the ship gets righted, which is happening right now, it could be pretty extraordinary, and it could maybe hold a monastic facility in the future, possibly. So it's just reframing. Then I think, like, so I'm out there, I have this little cabin to live in. It's fine, it's very quiet. It's the quietest place I've ever lived, in the redwoods, beautiful place, hiking trails. The people I'm working with, very dedicated people. But what's the problem? Reframing. What's the problem? So there's a part of my ego that says, I want, or I don't want to have the meeting at that time. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to be the one where that person has to come to and then complain that they're not getting along with this person. And this is life in samsara. There's always something, always something. So if you reframe, okay, perspective, a healthy perspective is the foundation of joy and happiness, because the way we see the world is the way we experience the world. This is so related to emptiness in Buddhism, the nature of reality. The way we see the world is the way we experience the world, right? How many of you like eggplant? Put your hand up. How many don't like eggplant? Everybody likes eggplant. I'm not a real fan of eggplant. Is it the eggplant? Sorry, I left my Zoomers out of this. How many of you like eggplant? Who doesn't like eggplant? Thank you. Me and Patty and Doran. Okay. We're not fond of eggplant. Is it eggplant that's the problem? Is it eggplant that's so inherently good? Because everybody in this room likes it? You know, it's not, no, but it's your perspective on it. I could go through a bunch of foods and half of you'd raise your hand and half of you didn't raise your hand. So it's your perspective of how you experience things. Did you ever notice where you're working sometimes, and how many of you have a boss you don't get on with? Anybody have some colleague at work? Yeah. Some colleague at work, you're not working that well? No, Zoom, everybody in Zoom is okay. They have a great boss. Okay. What's that? Being recorded, yes. Oh, right, okay. But do you have someone in your life who's a little jealous? I'd say?
Neighbors.
Neighbors, yes. Neighbors, right? But does everybody view the neighbors the same? Aren't there some people, don't those neighbors have friends? But like, I mean, it's so interesting when you really you go through space and these people don't like this, but these people like it. So you have to check yourself. Could the seed be in my mind? Could the seed be in my mind? Is really helpful to think about. And that's partly is the way we see the world again, is how we experience the world. And I've noticed this time and again. You know, I often have told the story of the Indian train with the English woman, that I was on an Indian train overnight years ago. And this English woman gets on. So if you find a Westerner and you're on the train, it used to be in the old days, you'd kind of gravitate, but she was in my little 6-person compartment with an Indian family, 4 of them. But often you'd want somebody to speak to, and it was overnight. And I was always a little nervous on the trains in the beginning till I got the system down. Now it's the Indians are great. I mean, I love India, but she's there with me. And I didn't know her, but we're on the train and she's miserable. I mean, after a couple hours, like, I didn't really want to talk to her anymore. I'm like, I've got hours with this woman, you know, she's just miserable. Everything was India, this. And so I see the Indian family, they know a little bit of English, and I see them picking up on her, and they're not happy on this vibration and on. But everything that I said, oh, and they bring the little, milk, it's like sweet milk tea in the little flask. And I said, I love the little thermoses. And isn't it amazing how they bring it right to your seat? You don't have to go to the cafe car. You know how in American trains, you're like, staggering through the cars and things. They bring, and they take your food order, they bring you food, they bring you vegetarian food if you want. Because India is a very vegetarian country, right? They don't eat cows so there's all these things I just love about Indian trains. And the bathrooms are a little dirty and things like that. Okay, so but I'm kind of saying to her and everything, she's like, she gets her flask of the thing. She goes, my tea is cold. My thing is cracked. My flask is cracked. The omelet is cold, whatever. So we go to sleep, we wake up morning. Okay, we're going to be off the train in a few hours, but the sun's rising out the window. It's really beautiful. Those mornings on the Indian trains, you got the little villages, people making caca in the fields. It's very nice, right? But so the Indian family and I see the sunrise and we're having a little moment together. It's like beautiful. And we're smiling at each other. Nobody's talking, but we're like, this is really a moment, like tears in our eyes. It was really very touching. And she's rumbling through her bag. And I thought, well, this will get her. Like, she's so beautiful right now. And so I kind of gestured to her and I said, the sun is rising. I said, look, the sun is the window. Like, you couldn't say it wasn't beautiful. From my perspective, it just wasn't possible. It was so, and the Indian family's all looking at her like, like, okay, like we want her to be happy too, And she looks out the window for a really long time. She's looking and looking, and I'm like, really long. She's looking out the window, and then she turns to me and she says, the window is full of scratches. Can you imagine? So again, do you want life to be full of scratches? And that's how you see everything, is in some kind of broken form, or can you make the best of it? Perspective, right? So this is samsara, and samsara is a Sanskrit word that means to cycle, to turn, right? And all of that is suffering, birth, old age, sickness, and death. I accept that. But because I accept it, I'm not trying to fix samsara anymore. That means sometimes your car breaks down, sometimes you're not really in a good mood dealing with something at work, or somebody gets sick, or this happened, or that happened, or, the faucet broke in the kitchen the other day, or this, whatever your thing is, that's going to happen. Okay. But because I understand that's going to happen, there's still joy. I can be happy with certain things. I don't want to, I'm choosing not to see life full of scratches. There's something to think about. Oops. Humility. We understand what humility means. Some people have more of it than others. Okay. Humility, humor, and humanity come from the same Latin root for the word for earth or soil. Can you imagine the word for earth or soil? Humus. Humility literally brings us back to earth, sometimes with a thud, right? Okay. So when you think of arrogance coming really from insecurity, and it really alienates you from other people, right? This idea that putting other people down, I'm bigger than everyone else, because I don't feel that way, because I feel insecure. And when we're around people with a lot of humility, they're very attractive. Like I'll think like, so humble. It's people that do great things on the planet, and they don't need any credit. They don't want any attention for it. They just keep doing. They just keep showing up. So think about that from the earth, don't we want to be from the earth? We live on planet Earth. The grounding I sometimes lead in meditations of feeling the roots of the earth, not in a leaden way pulling you down, supporting you. So that humility can be so helpful of you come into a situation and there's somebody you're thinking, I can't learn anything from them, but you can learn something from everybody. It gives me more of an ability to help. Not that I have much humility, but it gives you more of an ability to help others, to see them on an equal level. I want to be happy. I don't want to suffer. So do you. I have Buddha nature, a seed that can awaken into a Buddha. So do you. We're the same in that way. So it lends to equanimity, that you're able to help more people. You're able to get into the trenches with people rather than pitying people. You're able to have more empathy and compassion. I'm okay to get my hands dirty. Somebody loses someone, somebody dies in the family, maybe suddenly, and they're devastated. The family's devastated. So pity kind of will say like, oh, I'm really sorry. Let me know if you need anything. Rather than, I'm just going to drop off the soup. I don't care if you eat it or not. I'm going to drop it off. You don't need to thank me. I just want you to know there's dinner outside your house. I just dropped it off. Don't worry. You don't need to do anything. I just want you to know I'm here and I'm going shopping. And I used to do this for some people. I'm going shopping on Monday. So honestly, just text me a list, and what I do is I check in again. If they didn't want to do it, I'm like, I'm going shopping. I might knock on the door. I might call them. I might text them. I'm going to be shopping in a couple hours. So honestly, can I bring you a bag of fruit? Do you want some milk? Just you get in people's faces, but not overly, not so much, but you're still there, where pity's just doesn't want to get their hands dirty. So sorry. Let me know. People when they're in grief, they're not going to let you know unless you're really close with them what they need, like that. Humor, incredibly helpful on the path at all. Humor is really helpful in life. Again, from this same root, from the earth. Even good belly laughs. Laughter we know is one of the greatest fixes, one of the greatest medicines, appropriate laughter, okay? Being able to laugh at yourself, hugely helpful. Not taking yourself so seriously at times. Sometimes you need to, women need to assert themselves sometimes. I'm amazed at like just seeing the planet, what my friends, female friends have struggled with, and how somehow, a man is strategic, in leading something, doing something, and a woman is calculating. That's how you're labeled. It's unbelievable. I could go on and on. So sometimes for women, you are, you'll be labeled, you're taking yourself too seriously, because other people are not, where a a man's always taken seriously when he says something. So it's really a challenge, but finding the appropriate time to laugh, for laughter, using it. Humor is incredibly helpful, I find, in just breaking the, we've been having board meetings every single week, sometimes two. Can you imagine? Normally boards meet a few times a year, but we're the director of the center now. We don't have a director, so we're like, we're going to be the director. That means we're going to meet every week. We're doing it. They're really good people. They're great. But you bump up against people, and people have different ideas of how the center should reopen, what are we going to do? And that's okay, but we keep it quite harmonious. And the other day, one of my friends who was not on the board, but he helps with the process, was kind of in an email, kind of beating me up about something. And finally at the end, and I said, well, can you cut me some slack? And then he came back to me in person at the meeting, and he said, that was so helpful for me to hear that you said that, because he says he's always critical. He's very critical to people. So when I kind of said to him, stop, I'm doing the best I can. Like I'm reflecting on what you're saying, but come on, like and he said, thank you for saying it, because I realized I'm very critical of people. And then he looked at me and he said, I'm not perfect. But it was so funny. And all of a sudden I looked at him and I said, sorry, and I said to him, and I said, wait, you said that and you didn't ask me to sit down first? You're delivering a message that you're not perfect. And I said, oh my God, I almost fell over. So, we laugh, and then it's light, and then all that stuff goes away. Like whatever he's holding on about me, whatever I'm holding, it just goes. It's like, we're fine. Yeah. Let it go. That. I'm so glad that this call came in, because it's people that have been at this community years ago. They don't come anymore, but there's a couple that first hosted me, and then I lost their contact info, and I thought I must call them, and lost their contact. I tried to reach them other years and we didn't connect, and then I had her name spelled wrong, so I couldn't find her in my I'm like, why don't I have their contact? And called anyway. So finally she called back, because I didn't reach her the last few years. Next one is acceptance. This is the last pillar for the mind. Acceptance. Okay, this is a huge one, and I layer this together with the first one of the heart: forgiveness, acceptance, and forgiveness. Huge spaces for your mind. First of all, what are you not accepting about yourself? What are you not accepting about yourself? Because what happens is you're going to grind yourself here. I hear people constantly, I always do this. I did it again. I snapped at my partner. I didn't do the thing. I forgot to pick up the stuff. I never want to do it. I'm not taking responsibility, again and again and again. And then you beat yourself up. Okay. So the first thing, again, and this is why practice is so helpful. Practice means you have to do it again and again and again. So sometimes we're on our cushion doing it. Some meditation seat. You can sit in a chair to meditate. You want to sit like this, sit in a chair. It's perfectly fine. But you have to do some positive patterns again and again and again to familiarize your mind with them. That's how it works. It takes time. Okay. But the thing is, when you sit on your cushion, when you're doing a course, when you start coming to centers and participating, you start facing your mind. You start looking at your mind. And so through that process, I start realizing I really don't accept that aspect of myself. So I realize that's just something I do, but if it's a negative thing, I'm working on it, trying to change it. But for now, and I know it's been really interesting with this group of people, because some of us are old friends for years. And, there's times we've said to each other, well, I'm just like that. That's just something I'm working on it, but I just do that. That's just my quality. When I do that, so there's part of it, there's an acceptance of that. And if I accept it in myself, I'm more likely, that's the beginning of me accepting it in someone else. So when you look at the fights you have with other people, disagreements, or the tension, the stress you have with other people, what are you not accepting in them? And sometimes they're mirrors for behavior in yourself you refuse to accept. So this is where forgiveness really comes in. So forgiveness, this first quality of the heart, people hold on to stuff. There's some people that hold grudges. So sorry, right? It's really a hard one. But if I've already come to a place where I accept, this is samsara, so I have flaws, right? I'm a Buddhist nun, but I'm not a Buddha. I'm a human being who makes mistakes. And I accept that about myself now. So I noticed this process with, this is my third retreat center, third residential center. And I'm much more gentle with myself in certain ways where I just don't, I make a mistake, or I didn't thank somebody, or I didn't, and then someone will say, well, that you should have done that, or we were supposed to, and I go, okay, well, I didn't do it. Okay. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to do it better, but I let it go. The last two centers I would hang out, I'd be up at night. Like I did that and I did that. Like now I'm doing the best I can. I know that. So, and I accept other their mistakes. If they're not, I thought you were going to talk to the guy this week. We needed it done this week. Well, I didn't have a chance. Okay. What are you going to do? Get angry at somebody? I didn't have a chance. Everybody's busy like that. So my ability to forgive myself the mistakes first came from my acceptance. I'm a human being. That means you're flawed. Human condition is we're flawed. We make mistakes. I'm not laying a trip on you. You're not a bad person. You have a good heart. You have Buddha nature. Okay. So the fact that you got in this room, to me, tells me you have a good heart like that, most probably. But from accepting that level of me that I'm a human being, but I'm trying to work on stuff, then allows me into the room of forgiveness when I mess up. Because I've already gotten to the point I accept this is samsara. So when I mess up, there's more forgiveness there. I'm able to forgive myself. Then I'm able to forgive others. If you can't forgive yourself, it's going to be really hard with others. You're holding them to a higher standard like that. And it was even helpful with my friend when I said to him on email, can you cut me some slack? Great. And that triggered him to come back to me to say, I get really critical and I'm not perfect. And then I had to be like, yeah, I was holding him up to, I think, a higher standard. You need to be at this other level. And I'm like, no, he's doing great. Why not look at people as well, celebrate the benefits, the positive things about them. If you're somebody that's really negative and you just see the negative, make a deal with yourself. Every day. I was talking the other day about a story with someone I worked with years ago, but I chose when I go in the next day, and I did this on my cushion. I didn't have much of meditation experience at the time, just sitting in this little loft I had above my bed. And I'd be like, I'm uncomfortable working with this guy. So my deal was the next day when I go in, I would choose just to see his good qualities. Because the other part just over exaggerates the negative qualities when you don't like someone or you're not comfortable with someone. So my little deal with myself, my little generation in my mind, dedication, the little commitment I was going to do the next day is when I see him, I will try my best to focus on his good qualities, which I did. And when I would do it, the little negative stuff would pop up. And I'd be like, in my mind, you said just the good qualities right now. So let's just focus on, and it got better and better and better, the relationship with this person. Okay, gratitude. The next one of the heart, gratitude. This pillar, this is a huge one. So again, this all involves reframing your perspective, coming after acceptance and forgiveness. Okay. How do you experience gratitude in your life? Do you have that going on in your life? I'm just curious, what happens for you? You do, yeah? Every day, some kind of thought about gratitude, and wonderful, right? Other people not really experiencing that and feeling kind of like, How are you guys doing? Zoomers? How's gratitude going in your life? Okay, so Patty's what's happening, Patty? Do you want to unmute and tell us?
So is there such a thing as contrived gratitude?
Contrived gratitude. Yeah, absolutely. You're forcing it. Yep. Contrived gratitude. So, and here's the thing, and this is not gratitude, but rejoicing relates to it. Rejoicing is one of our Buddhist practices, meaning somebody's doing something good, or the center's reopening and all these people dedicating their time for it. And I rejoice. I think fantastic, like I'm happy. I get some of the merit, and without doing anything, I just rejoice. So you hear about people in Bodh Gaya, India, in the season, which is the winter. And the season's like, October through February. And a lot of people go there before the pandemic and would just be completely enmeshed in spiritual practice, making 100,000 prostrations, doing mandala offerings, doing prayer festivals. And, and sometimes I've been in the season living there at times doing that myself. And other times I couldn't do it. I was back working in the States at a center or something, but I would rejoice. Somebody sent me a picture and I would rejoice like that. So, sorry. So just the rejoicing, they say, you just sit on your butt and rejoice and say how wonderful. Like you see the picture of people and you go, oh, how wonderful, right? And you get some of the merit of somebody making 100,000 prostrations. So rejoicing is really powerful. And initially I wasn't a natural rejoicer. I would have a little bit of jealousy. How come they're there? How come she's going to Hawaii? So I forced it. I heard about rejoicing and I would be initially, and I'd see some other friends really happy and I'd kind of marvel at them. And then I'd be like, I even put my mouth in the right position, even though I didn't feel it. It wasn't in my mind, and I'd be like, great, right? So, but over and over, great. And now it just comes naturally. Now I really feel it. Like I think it, I'll be like, that's so great. So happy for them. So you practice, Patty, and you practice. And initially it could be, so with gratitude, if I'm not really feeling grateful for something, but look at all we have to be grateful for. Those of us in the room are probably what I'd call the privileged, right? Very, very privileged when I thought of what was going on in the pandemic and having to, just in the United States, like I was watching the news at times and seeing, and there was ways like I wanted to send an offering to somebody, but you don't know how to reach the woman in Texas who's interviewed on the news, waiting for 4 hours in line to get food with her kids. So she had to go to work. So she's like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job because she's what's called an essential worker now. We've renamed them. They're always essential. The people who mop the hospital floors. How are you going to have a hospital without somebody who cleans the floors, who empties the trash, who picks up all that blood material that's so contaminated and throws it away? Like they're always essential. Restaurant workers, bus drivers, like all these people that got slammed in the pandemic because they live in small houses, bunch of people in one house, everybody got COVID, the older people in the house died. Unbelievable, So it's like you think, how can I not be grateful for what I have? But sometimes the mind gets kind of complaining and just gets used and gets a habit of complaining, not appreciating what you have. So in the morning, I've mentioned this many times here before, my first 2 minutes, waking up in bed, waking up by alarm or naturally, doesn't matter. But people hit the snooze or they have a groan. Oh, I don't want to get up now. I have my list, my agenda. I have to have that meeting today. My first 2 minutes, all that stuff can wait. That's later. Even if you have kids, it's like get up earlier then. First 2 minutes, my first minute, I'm in a comfortable bed, safe. Okay, I'm not in Ukraine. I'm not dodging bullets and thinking a bomb's going to fall in the building. That's what they're living in. I'm not living in that. I've never lived in that, as a matter of fact. How many of you have lived in a war zone? Right? How lucky are we never to have experienced that? Right? So you wake up, so I have 1 minute of these positive circumstances in my life. I just relish it. Just breathe it in. Let that soak, that appreciation, that wave go right through your bones, down to a molecular level. So your body, and let it go through all the thoughts, body and mind, filled with the gratitude. Wake up with that. Second minute, appreciation for my good qualities. This is harder. People will say, well, that's kind of an ego trip, or I don't have any good qualities. You have many good qualities, and I don't even know you, right? I need some buoyancy, and it's not an ego trip. I want to feel confident and good about myself so I can do the work I'm doing to help, because I really want to help living beings, right? I'm not any better than them. That's not how I feel, but I have some good qualities. I know I was a really good daughter. I think I'm a good friend, right? I've tried really hard to run centers well as a director. I'm trying to be a good board member right now. I think I'm a good sister. Like I just, there's some balanced things. Like I think I do those things. Thank you. It's nice to meet him. Is try to do, so you're just trying to realize that, because a lot of people feel lousy about themselves, and they cart that around all day. It's not the truth. It's not your whole story. You have many good qualities. That's my first 2 minutes. The next minute is, I'm going to die soon. Okay, so that might sound shocking. Okay, but death is coming soon. It really is. And if I think about, not in a morbid way, not in a paralytic, I'm going to die soon, oh my God. I actually act like it's going to be my last day. This is my last day. 6 o'clock tonight, it's over. So maybe it's in the middle of our get together. Sorry, you'll have to deal with me. You'll have to deal with my, but I really try to believe it. And then from there, I set a motivation, right? While I'm in bed, this is 4 minutes. In bed, okay, what I'd really like to do is make the most meaning of today because it's my last day. What does that mean? Trying to help others as much as I can. Trying to direct the focus off of myself as much as I can, right? It doesn't happen all day long that I direct the focus off of myself because I'm a human being, but I try. I really try. And then with that, that's my motivation. I want to show up, walk along this path, get enlightened as quickly as I can because so many need help, to be of the most benefit to all of them. And with that, I get out of bed. Gratitude. Okay. So acceptance means not fighting reality, right? Gratitude means embracing reality. Means moving from counting your blunders, counting your burdens, to counting your blessings. It's an antidote to envy, jealousy, okay? And it's a huge recipe for appreciating your own life. Hugely helpful. And just simple things. And they quote in here, some of you have maybe heard of Anthony Ray Hinton, who was on death row for 30 years for a crime he didn't commit in Alabama. 30 years on death row. He was released from prison. And he says, one of his quotes, people run out of the rain. He said, I run into the rain. How can anything that falls from heaven not be precious? Having missed the rain for so many years, I'm so grateful for every drop just to feel it on my face. Something as simple as that. So sometimes, and I noticed in the pandemic, I had like 2 communities. So one community of the privileged, like myself, I had food, clothing, shelter, great neighborhood, quiet, peaceful. I could do the work. I had internet, so I could teach online. And then talking with people like that. And some of them would start, you'd hear some of the complaints. Like the grocery store didn't have the other day. But then the other community I was trying to help support there were a few, there's some elderly people I know in Manhattan. One stuck alone in his apartment for a month, completely lonely and freaked out and couldn't go out. Then his elevator was broken for 5 months and he can't walk without the elevator. So he was like a shut-in. Fortunately, he had some people helping, but at the beginning of the pandemic, they weren't coming into the apartment. They were just dropping food out, and he was very challenged with what's happening. There's like a few couples like that in Manhattan, but one of them lives alone. And other people that were struggling financially, people that had to go to work that were doing these kind of jobs. So you have the 2 sides of trying to learn my own thing, not to complain about the situation I would have versus, like, I remember when the cars started moving again. So we had April 2020, if you remember that. On one level for me, it was like the best month of my life ever. It was just quiet, peaceful. My niece and I were doing distance walks together. So she has a trail near her apartment. We would walk, together, but talking, but separate, because you just didn't know with the virus what was happening. But I would drive to her house, and her apartment used to be 40 minutes away with traffic. It was always 40 minutes. April 2020, it was 20 minutes away and nobody on the road. And I was like, this is amazing, right? Just to see the roads empty so that our pollution levels went down was a blessing on one level. So again, I might have had a good time in that month, but essential workers didn't at all. People that own restaurants and gyms and hair salons and barbershops, not at all. Were freaked out. How are they going to pay their bills? I had neighbors like that. I have neighbors that had a hair salon, and finally after a year, they closed it because they couldn't keep it going anymore, like that. So think about what even small things can we appreciate? What small things do we, so rejoicing is a great process related to gratitude. What small things can you really, and what about your partners? Those of you in long-term relationships, can you really see your partner in a new light with gratitude of what real benefit, who they really are? What are the kind things they do? What are their good qualities that you haven't focused on in a while? I find that really helpful. Are you, and here's something when we get to generosity at the end, because we've got compassion and generosity left. And I was going to go over a little bit because I came in late, the one offering you can give generosity to your partner is, do you really fully listen to them when they're speaking? When you're with somebody a long time, you tune them out. Like I said yesterday, we were doing this great meditation yesterday, this meditation day. And do you ever notice your active listening is gone? Your partner's saying something. Maybe you're a little irritated at them for bringing this up again. And what you hear is they speak. And what you hear is, you're passing through the kitchen or the living room. You didn't get a word of it. You just tuned out. Can't hear them talking about that again. And then later they say, but I told you, and then you say, no, you didn't. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. And then you start fighting. So offer them listening. It may disarm them. But listen, see if you can really stop what you're doing for a moment. It's a great offering. It's real love, like to stop what you're doing. I really care about what you're saying. What are you saying, right? They might be a little bit like, what's wrong? You're listening to me. But you can just say, I'm just listening. Just listening. Compassion. Okay. This we hear about a lot in Buddhism. Compassion is the wish to free others from suffering. The wish to free others from suffering. Or the wish for yourself, self-compassion, that you be free of suffering. Love is wanting the other to be happy or wanting yourself to be happy. That's love. That's the difference between love and compassion. Okay. Some people equate love and attachment. Attachment is what's in it for me. That's attachment. That's not love. When you say you love somebody, right? But you're really concerned about what am I going to get out of this? That's attachment. That's a poison in your mind, delusion and imbalance in your mind. But compassion, even Hebrew word, rachamim, okay? From rechem, the womb, that mother love, think about the mother's nurturing like that. Falling in here, okay, coming in for a landing, okay. Think about that mother's nurturing. Mothers are the last to give up on you, generally, usually the last to give up on you. But we learn compassion from our mothers. We learn compassion. All mothers want for their kids, and many fathers, is their kids to be free of suffering, doesn't want their kids to be suffering at all. And of course, they want their kids to be happy. Of course, they have that love as well. Compassion is in many ways expanding the maternal instinct that was very pivotal for our survival of the species, like that. Compassion is also contagious, okay? And it's also, you get the warm feeling we get from helping others comes from a release of oxytocin in our system. If you get a warm feeling from helping others, there's a hormone that gets released called oxytocin, okay? It's the same hormone that's released by lactating mothers. Okay, so this hormone seems to have health benefits, okay, including a reduction of inflammation in your body. So compassion is good for your health. Good for your health. Serving others is good for your health. And compassion is contagious. You've seen at times when somebody, there was somebody that I was in the aisle in the supermarket and something fell and all these cans fell or something, right? And I could see people down the aisle kind of look and then, maybe thinking, oh, I hope somebody's going to pick it up, And then what happened is two of us went to help this person because we started doing, and then everybody came down the aisle. It was like, oh, we can help. Things were rolling this way and that way. And everybody suddenly got in because they saw we jumped in, and it happens a lot. So jump in because somebody else generally is going to come help once they see somebody else. People wait for people to get started. It's kind of neat if you have a leader capacity where you're the one to start instead of waiting. And be cautious with your friends when the should comes out. I've had friends, what should we do? Should we do something? Think on your own. You're a thinking person. You got a good mind, a good heart. You can initiate as well. And I know some people are not natural leaders or they tend to follow, but don't should on your friend. Like I've had that many times. Somebody, I remember one night driving home to Vajrapani, there's lots of animals on the road, raccoons. They get hit by cars. So sometimes you'd see, there were deer as well, but raccoon got hit. But before we got there, it was already in the street. And my friend and we slowed down. And then they said, oh, what should we do? I happened to be driving, but they could have said, can you pull over? And it was intact, the raccoon. And we wanted to see was it alive? So I just immediately pulled over and they're kind of going, what should we do? And I pulled over and pulled it off the road and it was dead. But, have an idea of what, sometimes you have to think quickly. I know that's tricky, but it can be really nice that it comes into somebody else, gets connected to it. We talked about self-compassion the other night. This is hugely helpful on the path and in life in general. Self-compassion. This is not about self-cherishing. Self-cherishing we're trying to get rid of in Buddhism, okay? Where I'm only thinking about myself, me first, self-absorption, selfishness. Self-compassion is I know I need to take care of myself so that I can give more, that I can be more available, that with this motivation that I want to help all living beings. My role on the board and all the board members is, look, we keep reminding each other because it's very intense right now. Take some time off. You need a break. You need to, why are you sending me emails at 10:30 at night? I thought you said you were shutting down at 9. Reminding each other, take a break. That's I'm knowing when I go back, I got into my old workaholic habits. So when I go back, I'm really dead set on, I'm going to get some exercise. I'm going to get a day off a week. I've got to, because that's going to help everybody, that if I take care of myself and we remind each other to take some breaks, it's really helpful. A lack of self-compassion can manifest in a harsh, judgmental relationship with yourself, right? We've all been there at times. Many people believe that unless they're critical and demanding, they will be failures, unworthy of recognition and undeserving of love. Some people have that motoring through their minds. Some people were raised in very critical, negatively critical households. So their feeling is if it's not hard, if I'm not beating myself up, something's wrong. Some people have households where if they don't feel guilty, something's wrong. They were raised like that. I was kind of raised in a household like that. My mom and my grandmother were always like, they needed to feel guilty about something in order to be. It's just a cultural thing, So growing up, I noticed, and my sister and I would talk about it of this, or if I don't feel guilty, then something, and I realized anymore, guilt's just a negative circling of the mind. Rinpoche said that to me once, it's just a negative circling of the mind. You don't want to die in that moment feeling guilty. Regret is different. Regret is I've done something wrong. I'm facing and I'm looking at it, I'm noting that I really hurt this person or I hurt myself. I'm going to stay there with it for a little bit to understand the ramifications. And now I have a purification practice, Vajrasattva, that I'm going to do to purify. And then I let it go. I don't have to feel guilty anymore. I've done all I can do for it, but really do a good job. And you let it go. I'm working through my practices that help me purify stuff like that. I don't have to hold on to it and feel guilty. You do the best you can. This is from Kristen Neff, wonderful psychologist, talks a lot about self-compassion. When we treat ourselves with compassion, we accept there are parts of our personality we may not be satisfied with, but we don't berate ourselves as we try to face them and address them, okay? When we go through a difficult time, we're caring and kind to ourselves as we would be to a friend or a relative that's going through a difficult time, right? You have a friend who's going through a difficult time, you're much more spacious with them, even in your tone of what you say to them, how you listen to them, than when you're going through a difficult time. For some people, it's like that. When things are hard, we recognize that all people go through difficult times. You're not alone. right? When we're feeling down, you try to understand the feeling with curiosity and acceptance rather than negative self-talk. Get curious when you do something negative. Get curious. I wonder why I did that. Oh, I was feeling a little panicked about this guy when he shows up and he's always very demanding. Okay, well, it's understandable. But you don't have to get down on yourself. You're understanding your mind more with the curiosity. Generosity. And then we'll stop soon. Generosity, as we know, we've talked a little, it's often something we learn to enjoy by doing it. You see, whether, I remember first like volunteering in a soup kitchen for years. In the beginning, I was a little unnerved. I didn't know what I was doing. They had to train me, and then some of the people we drove a truck in a little food truck in Washington, D.C. to 3 parks during the Reagan years, if you can imagine. Reagan cut all the funding to the social programs and the one state hospital in that area, St. Elizabeth's. So every month, more and more people were on the street with a mental illness where they needed like $8 a day for medication, couldn't get it, and they ended up crazy on the street. A medication that would keep them functioning. So it was really alarming, the lines, in the beginning, some people were a little violent. It was a very dangerous time in Washington, D.C. when I lived there. And but I knew when we did it and just seeing their appreciation. And, I remember at Christmas, I went to a drugstore right before they closed, on Christmas Eve. And I said, I'm working in the soup truck. Can you, and the guy he's like, all of this aisle, half price to you, all the candy canes, because junkies like sugar. And a lot of people, alcoholics, junkies, and substance abusers and things, and they like sugar. And they, but it was Christmas and I just wanted to give them fun Christmas candy and fun Christmas things and decorations and stuff that they could, and he's like, everything in this aisle, half price. And just to see, so for me, it filled my heart up. It was incredible, the joy that I got by doing it with these so unfortunate people that were really struggling. And it's a reason every religion has some kind of charity aspect, because people feel good doing it. People get something from that. Not only does it support the church, support the synagogue, support the Buddhist center, but people enjoy, they're really like, and I know at the residential centers, I love to show people directly, here's the old range. Like you see, it's leaking propane. We're going through this right this moment at Land of Medicine Buddha. We bought a new range that's supposed to arrive any day. We did it before at Vajrapani. They see the range. What a mess. From the 1950s. Are you kidding me? You're still using that industrial range. The ovens don't work anymore. It's leaking propane, right? And then they see the new range and they gave money to it. So they go, well, look, do you see the range? I gave $100 to that. Let's contribute to that. And then they see the new range. Just show them. I think it's really, really helpful. In Buddhism and Hinduism, we call it dana. Okay. Christianity, it's called charity. In Judaism, it's called tzedakah, which literally means justice. It's interesting, right? It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam, generosity, right? So it's a big one. It's a big one for that generous heart. So important in all the world's religions, because it no doubt expresses a fundamental aspect of our interdependence and our need for one another, right? So interdependence, coming back to the crux of the Buddhist tradition, interdependence, understanding the nature of reality, emptiness, and realizing that everything arises in dependence on something else. So all of us are interconnected in that way. And it's crucial that we take care of our minds so that we're interacting and bumping up against other people in a more positive, more generous, more beneficial way. Questions, comments? Anybody there in the Zoom room? Question? Anybody here? Question or comment? Anything they're wrestling with? If they want anything about Buddhism at all.
Say again, for me, it's all about the practice. I found that for me, gratitude and generosity are the antidote for just about any negative mental formation. But it takes practice, and I've come to notice that the opposite messages are sent to me all the time in society. It's okay to get angry. It's okay to in cognitive therapy, right? It's okay, express your anger, whatever. But no, that's not, for me, that's not the right thing to be expressing. It needs to understand, to look at the anger, but not to express it, but to transform it, right? To use that energy in some other way.
Yes.
And so those two aspects of your teaching today really resonated.
Thank you, Ralph. That, and Patty has put in the chat for those of you on Zoom, the YouTube, the watching areas that people can see some of, and the Book of Joy connection. And there's an audio book she's put in the chat. So thank you for saying that, because I've found that what's very difficult now in degenerate times, it's getting worse, I notice, is less people are using the resources of their mind in the positive resources of their mind in a beneficial way. And our society for years, as we've known, does contribute. And it used to be very much the 70s psychotherapy or therapy that was about, you're like, a lot of us, our lives are about surviving our, what our parents did to us, right? Surviving our childhoods. But in a sense, things happen. And your parents, I know all of your parents went to the great Harvard of parenting universities, right? No, they learned from their parents, who learned from their parents, who learned from their parents. So a friend of mine who lives in Miami that I saw the other day, who has 2 teenage daughters, well, the second one's almost a teenager. And she mentioned to me about what she and her husband are doing to try to be conscious parents. She took a class recently about conscious parenting. And I was so impressed with her. Like, parents need to do that, especially before you get into teenagehood with your kids, but people don't have time to do it. Right? So they muddle along the way their parents muddle along. They do the best they can. Even abusive parents probably were abused. That's the best they can do. It's not okay. I'm not excusing it, but that's the best they can do. So I was so impressed that she chose to do this parenting course. And I think she and her husband are doing a great job. Like, I'm really impressed with, and they have 2 great kids, and it's not easy. So, so what 70s therapy was doing at the time that I remembered being more conscious, cluing in, was you get back at your parents now. So your mother's 75, and now you go back and you drive her through the trash to tell her how she abused you and what she did. And it doesn't really solve it. It doesn't mean you hang out with the abuser anymore, or that you don't confront them on certain things, but you find the right way to get the right people to support, to tell your story. Archbishop Desmond Tutu has the Book of Forgiving with his daughter. If you have trouble with forgiveness, if you've been abused, read the book. How to Forgive the Abuser. You need to tell your story. That's valuable. You need to tell your story with the right people there, the right witnesses, even if the abuser has passed away. You can still tell your story, go through the phases of the forgiveness. It's really helpful. So rather than the getting angry where people think they don't understand, they think anger is a good response, then you create another habit of anger in your mind, another habit of anger, another habit of hatred in your mind. That seed, you're watering that seed, then that grows. That's where the war in Ukraine comes from. Anger, hatred, confusion, attachment, all the 3 poisons. Ignorance, the root delusion, root poison, and an underestimation of what's out there. Putin saying, oh, they're Nazis, Nazis with a Jewish leader. That's interesting. Okay, Nazis with a Jewish leader, but he's, underestimating and lying about what's going on there. Okay. And the other part is attachment's the other one. So he's got underestimating what's going on. You have hatred and anger, and then an overestimation of what's there. He wants Ukraine. I want that country. Attachment. He's got the 3 poisons operating. How can we not have compassion for him? Suffering he's creating for his own mind stream. Now, let alone for all the people he's killing. But to hate him, you can hate him and hold him out, and the leader of China and all those, the leader of Korea, all those totalitarian regimes. Then you create constriction in your heart, and they know nothing about you hating them. They don't even know who you are. But if you generate compassion in your heart, I'm watering that seed. Regardless of what I think about them, what they're doing, they're creating so much suffering. I'm going to water that seed. I'm going to fertilize that seed. I'm going to shine the sun on that seed. I'm going to let compassion grow. You're more spacious. So thank you for mentioning gratitude and generosity. Anything else? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I really appreciated the healthy perspective being about reframing. That's something I really
Yep.
that it's reminding myself that it's about reframing.
There's always a positive, there can normally be a positive side. I mean, there's, again, my brother, the car's out of the driveway, the whole, let alone will it lighten up some things between him and his wife, no doubt. But then he's like, oh, now you can see the garden. You know, he can wallow in the car's gone, the car's gone, the car's gone. I wanted that car and fight with his wife. You wanted me to get rid of it. He's like, they're both like, oh, now you can see the garden. It's always a different perspective that you can. Now, it doesn't mean you suffer under abuse and say, oh, I can find. No, some things you need to say, stop. This needs to change. I need to be away from this person. We need to get help. We need to do an intervention. We need to get, absolutely. You practically do what you need to do, but with a compassionate heart and view, bigger perspective, that you still care about the person because they're so lost, tremendously lost, people that abuse other people. It's a very, very sad state. Think of that state of mind, very sad state of mind, right? So lost. How can we not have compassion? When little kids hit another kid in the sandbox, there's no more sandboxes anymore anyway, but when they hit another kid, that's so sad. That's the problem with reality. There's no sandboxes anymore, right? We've got the big sandbox here. But little kid would hit another kid because they don't know. But we say, well, it's a little kid, right? Adults behave the same way. Because we're lost, we get confused, just like little kids. With little kids, we excuse it. Then we have more compassion for them. He didn't know. He's really, his father's kind of a bully. But the same thing with adults. So just to keep your heart open and spacious with negative people, I think, well, even more lost, even more. They do have Buddha nature. Vladimir Putin has Buddha nature. He has a seed to become a Buddha. And you're like, what? He has Buddha nature, right? And you go, why does he act that way? Why do terrorists act that way? People that blow themselves up and, in front of, is they just have more veils of obscuration over their Buddha nature than maybe any of you. So how can you not have more compassion? You try. Okay, let's stop there. And we're going to do some dedication prayers. Yeah, so Patty's put the books and all that. We're going to do, so I'd like to dedicate, and we can turn to page 235 in the gold prayer book. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. Page 235, and let me just get this up for the. So let me know in Zoom if you can't. I think you can see. Okay. It's bigger. So what I'd like to do is when we dedicate, we motivated in the beginning, and we're going to dedicate. I always wonder how it comes. Oh, there it is. We're going to dedicate. We take whatever positive energy we created, and it's like investing it. So if you have a little drop of water in your hand, it'll quickly evaporate. If you take it and put it in the ocean, it becomes part of this vast pool of the water. So I'd like to dedicate, that's what dedication is like. If we created any positive energy or merit, we call it, let's invest it in whatever good things you can think of. And I like to invest it obviously in our getting enlightened quickly to benefit all living beings. I'd like to dedicate it to the flourishing of Thupten Khonga Center and all of our centers and projects as they try to reopen and adjust and adapt once again. For all the beings on the planet with COVID and other imbalances, body and mind, to be healed instantly. For some personal people I know really struggling right now, Joanne and Ross, Jody, Will, many people really struggling with severe health issues right now, may they be healed instantly. And for Lamo, who's part of this community, Lamo Wagner, who passed away recently, and all those who passed away in the last 49 days. May they immediately take a good rebirth to get enlightened, to benefit all. Lama Sangye Drugyorne Drowa Chikyang Malupa Dei Sala Guparsho Janju Senjo Rinpoche Ma ke panam ke gyurchik ke wanyam pa me pa yong gone gandu pelwar sho. Let's read this one in English. Number 3. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, I too dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect example. Page 244 is the long life prayers for the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the 3 jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. I'd like to thank everybody for coming, for joining on Zoom. Thank you, Patty. Patty's listed a way people can donate if you want to donate to the teacher. Western nuns have a hard time. We don't have a lot of support, and people don't realize that. We're not supported by FPMT. So you can apply for a grant from our Sangha fund and get $300 a month, which isn't really enough to live on in the States, but for now, so at least fortunately right now I'm have a cabin to stay in at the center, but California's outrageously expensive. I'm just in shock. The first time I filled up my car with gas was so managing like that. So anyway, I appreciate so much, but I so appreciate you all of you coming. And to Nicole, Tupten Kunga Center, thank you so much.
And thank you, Venerable Amy. It's such an honor to have you back here as always.
Thank you so much, my
usual.
dear.
On
Just
behalf
been,
of the center, thank you.
it's been such a treat. Thank you so much, Nicole. Just, it's been very surreal for me to be online and to be in person. And it's been a real treat because I've been coming to this center, I think since about 2007 to teach pretty much every year. And it's been about 3 years so that I haven't been back. So just to see, and old friends, people that I've gotten to be friends with over the years. And hopefully if I can continue to come every year, then you meet new people. And it's been wonderful, these relationships with people that I built. So one of the reasons I wanted to come back was just because of the number of people that I've met, and it's been wonderful. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I hope all goes well with the reopening and slowly, please support Tupten Kunga Center. It's really helpful that these centers continue to remain so we can work with our minds. We need these centers. It builds a community for you. So it's really wonderful.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so much.
Venerable Amy. And thank you everyone for coming. And if you would like to make an offering to Venerable Amy, a kata, you can please do so now. And Patty also wants to say a few words. We're so grateful to Patty, our spiritual program coordinator in Oklahoma. If you can speak loud so we can hear you, Patty.
Oh, thank you. Just thanks everyone for coming. And Venerable Amy kind of mentioned what I was going to mention. It's that most people aren't aware that Venerable Amy, like the majority of Western nuns, support themselves through the kindness and generosity of their students only. Financial support is not provided by FPMT. And our donations are how they support themselves, from paying for doctor's appointments to buying things like food and toothpaste. And if you can make an offering to Venerable Amy, it not only creates great karma for you, but it allows her to continue to teach us and turn the wheel of Dharma for the benefit of everyone. So thank you all so much for coming. I just really enjoy seeing you. And Venerable Amy, it's so wonderful to have you back there in the center. So wonderful.
Thank you so much. It's
Thank you.
wonderful to be back. Thank you so much.
Okay, and Patty's putting all the links on.
Do you want to stop the
chat there.
recording or?
Oh,
And we'll stop the
we
recording,
could-
and Ralph, if you want to start right here, offering, and then.
And thank you, Patty. And thank you, Patty, for I put the kata over your head.
thank you.
Have a great day. Until next time.
So
Venerable
sweet.
Severin will be here
Thank you
next
so
Sunday.
much.
So
Venerable
what
Amy.
people normally do is you put the envelope down
Oh.
because that's it. It's a lot. We always try to teach. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Ralph, for all
Thank
of your
you.
help. You've been
Thank you
great.
so
It's great
much.
to see you here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jack. Lovely to see you in person.
Yes.
It's nice to see you on